I recently had the opportunity to virtually sit down with Brian Emerson, the owner of Point North Networks, to discuss how structure has played a significant role in his business's growth. Brian had hired aligned operations a couple of years ago to implement structured operations when he decided he wanted to grow and evolve his business. What led to your interest in adding structure?
It turned out to be one of the best things I did at the time. I didn't get it. I didn't know the reason for it. There was pushback, and but I'm super glad we did it. Yeah, super glad.
What were some of the challenges you faced in implementing structure?
The thing was a time constraint. Now if everything else that I'm having to do and all these fires and crises going on, now I have to spend time, learning this and doing this. And I'm like, what is the point of this? So that was my personal challenge, is to figure out, well, how is this benefiting? But then after we start a little bit of a roll and we started implementing some of this stuff, well, what happens then is that, employees start to say, hey, wait a second here, you're expecting me to do something, and that sort of causes a riff a little bit. We, lost a couple employees because of that, and it was tough, but ultimately, it's been a much better journey, right? So that was some of the challenges that we faced with it, was time and adoption, especially with employees now having to be held accountable for the structure that got put in place.
Has structure changed what you look for in employees?
Yeah, because once we had a structure in place, we were able to carve out a responsibility chart or an org chart, and then we can start assigning specific roles and tasks to those employees. Even if we didn't have the employee, if we're hiring for a new one, we say, this is what we need, these are their responsibilities, and then you can hold them accountable to that, right? So that's what you're hiring for. They know what the position is, they know what they need to do, and if it isn't getting done, you say, why isn't this getting done? This is your responsibility. Then things, tend to run a little bit smoother and everything doesn't flow up to me, right? So
Right. How has structure directly benefited you?
well, part of it too is understanding. Once you get a structure in place, you start to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. And I'm understanding there's a lot of things I'm not good at, and integrating and in process I'm not good at.
I'm a little surprised by that, because you're very analytical.
Uh, I don't know that that's true or not. I mean, when for example, we're defining the sales process. I mean, I know it needs to get done, and I know we need to get from here to here, but all the little things in the middle, I lose my mind. I start getting, well, what about this? And we got to account for this, and well, this isn't going to work, and let's just forget it. So.
How has structure impacted your staffing practices?
And we've sort of made the decision that we're better off growing internally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's and we've been fine with that.
And do you feel that this structure and this a little bit more formality helps with that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then we can move, the people that we've started out lower into those different positions based on how they learn, and then we can kind of start backfilling. And I think it's a lot better for the employee, it's a lot better for us, and it lessens the need on, what we need in the job market. You hire a really high-end guy for a lot of money, well, he's in demand. And any other thing that might come along, then you're competing. But if you can really give somebody to start them out and treat them well and teach them and help them grow, they're probably more apt to stay with you and being a better all overall employee.
How has structure impacted your business's growth?
And what I realized is that there's no way we're going to be able to fulfill these opportunities and this growth unless we have structure internally. So we literally, took a year off of we're not selling anything, we're going to fix everything, and it kind of drove me nuts a little bit.
Yeah.
But man, it's paid off so much. I feel like we have the structure in place. We know exactly what we're doing. We know exactly the roles, and we're able to scale and increase capacity as demand comes in.
What impact has structure played on sales?
But that has changed because now when I go talk to a prospective client, I'm excited about, yes, we can do this and we're going to do a good job and we have structure. We know how it's going to get done. And customers really pick up on that.
Yeah.
You say you sell yourself, then you sell your business. And the last thing you sell is your product and service. And I believe that. And just feeling good about the company you have behind you goes a long way, in a sales process.
Do you feel more strategic about how the business is operating?
Well, with part of structure that, we were taught with aligned operations is, having, annual planning, quarterly planning, annual planning. And it makes it a lot easier to plan if you know what your numbers are. You can say, okay, last year we did this is where we ended up. Based on that and what's in the pipeline, by next year, we can plan for this. Well, and if we're going to plan for this is what we're looking for in terms of, employees and sales, and all that stuff really starts to make sense. You can say, okay, we think we're going to hire, 3 more employees by this date because our projections are based on our numbers that we're going to have this revenue, so we'll be able to support it. And if you don't hit that in a quarterly meeting, then maybe you got to scale back. So.
Where would you like to spend your time in the business?
I like the growth end of it, whether the growth end of it is, growing a new product or service, or, growing a sales department, or, that sort of thing is what I'm interested in, get a new product. This is what we're going to do, and more kind of a visionary stuff. This is the direction we're headed, but let somebody else worry about the nuts and bolts.
So what's your end game?
And it's gonna be ongoing. You're always tweaking it, you're always learning it, but the end game, like I said, I made a decision that I want to grow this into a viable business. And the end game by doing that is for me to be able to step away, right? Have all those roles and responsibilities and that structure in place that I don't need to be there anymore.